We need stronger penalties for sure. I want the federal government to come with a plan. The criminal code is under federal jurisdiction. They need to come with a plan that actually works for Ontario and works to keep us safe. What I can say, before the Liberal government was elected federally, the criminal code was a lot more in favor of public safety and keeping our neighborhoods and communities safe. Since they have made amendments and changes and passed bills to change it, we have seen that decrease in our communities. I will do everything I can. We need change on the criminal code. We need meaningful bail reform. Why are we hearing the same thing from our colleagues in British Columbia? Why is the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, calling for the same thing? Why is the Premier of Manitoba calling for the same thing? Why are we hearing from premiers on the East Coast, maritime premiers, calling for meaningful criminal code reform?
ਆਏ ਦਿਨ ਕਾਰਜੈਕਿੰਗ ਆਰਮਡ ਰੋਬਰੀਜ਼ ਦੀ ਘਟਨਾਵਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਨਵਾਂ ਪੋਰਟਫੋਲੀਓ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਿਊਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ, ਐਸੋਸੀਏਟ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਆਫ ਆਟੋ ਥੈਫਟ ਐਂਡ ਬੇਲ ਰਿਫਾਰਮ। ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਨਾਰਥ ਤੋਂ ਐਮਪੀਪੀ ਗ੍ਰਾਹਮ ਮੈਕਗ੍ਰੈਗਰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਆ ਪੋਰਟਫੋਲੀਓ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ, ਐਸੋਸੀਏਟ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਆਫ ਆਟੋ ਥੈਫਟ ਐਂਡ ਬੇਲ ਰਿਫਾਰਮ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਇੋਰਟੀਜ਼ ਇਸ ਪੋਰਟਫੋਲੀਓ 'ਚ ਕੀ ਹੋਊਗੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕ੍ਰਿਮੀਨਲ ਕੋਡ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਚੇਂਜਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ, ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਾਰ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਔਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਡਿਸਕਨੈਕਟ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਤੇ ਬਕ ਪਾਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕ੍ਰਿਮੀਨਲ ਕੋਡ 'ਚ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਚੇਂਜਸ ਹੈ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਾਂ, ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਦੋਜ਼ ਆਰ ਨਾਟ ਐਨਫ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਸਟੈਪ ਇਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਹੈ, ਸਟੈਪ ਅਪ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕ੍ਰਿਮੀਨਲ ਕੋਡ 'ਚ ਚੇਂਜਸ ਹੈ, ਪਨਿਸ਼ਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸਟਰੋਂਗ ਹੋਣ। ਇਹਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਡਿਸਕਨੈਕਟ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਟ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਆਫ ਬੇਲ ਰਿਫਾਰਮ ਐਂਡ ਆਟੋ ਥੈਫਟ ਗ੍ਰਾਹਮ ਮੈਕਗ੍ਰੈਗਰ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਡਿਸਕਨੈਕਟ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਿਕਸ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। My question is, because many times we asked Premier Ford also the same thing about the criminal code, changes in the criminal code. And this is kind of a passing the buck, because when we talk to the federal ministers, we talk to the Justice Minister, we talk to the Honorable Anita Anand, and very categorically quoted, they said, we have laws in place and it's up to the province. When we talked to the police chief, they said we need changes in the criminal code. The chair of the Peel region, Mr. Nando, said there is a disconnect. When we talked to the province, they said it's a federal ball that they have to step up to make the changes in the criminal code. We want to understand, the Canadians, the Ontarians want to understand whose responsibility is this? Where is the disconnect between the federal and the provincial government, and what to do so that the federal government, if they need to change make changes in the criminal code, what they have to do, why they are passing the bucks to the province, and why province is passing the buck to the federal, where is the disconnect? And Justice Minister, his own vehicle was stolen 3 times, and he said that we did amendment 2 times last year and this year, and that's good enough. Now it's a province who has to bring tough judges and all those things. So can you explain, please?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I've heard this from the Liberal federal government as well, where they say, well, we passed Bill C-48, the problem solved. You know, what are you talking about? And I think that really falls flat for a lot of residents. When the federal government changed Bill C-75, they implemented legal principles that basically the comfort of the suspected offender trumps other considerations. And they've really allowed this revolving door catch and release system that we see with the bail system. We believe that the criminal code should reflect the needs of neighborhoods, the needs of residents, the needs of everyday people who want to feel safe in their own community. And we shouldn't be having a rubric where judges and justice of the peace have to consider, the least restrictive form of bail anytime they make a ruling on whether somebody will be detained or whether somebody will be out into community again. Bill C-48 brought it back a little bit, and we're grateful for some of the reverse onus changes that they made. But it has nowhere near solved the problem that was started with Bill C-75 when that was passed in 2019. I want to be very clear on that. What I want to make sure that we do in Ontario, and what I'm committed to doing as well, it's not just about advocating to the federal government and telling them what we need. We need criminal code changes. I've said it. Police chiefs have said it. The premier has said it. We all know this. But what do we do if the federal government is unwilling to act? So what we've been doing is making sure that we beef up our own internal system with the justice system, hiring 25 more judges, making sure that we're appointing tough on crime judges that'll prioritize public safety, that we feel will prioritize public safety, and also complementing them with the court staff, the 190 court staff. So you see that continue to roll out to make sure that we have capacity in our system to, like, if we can't get better criminal code rules on bail, at least if we can process cases quicker, then you'll have people out on bail for less time, right? So we're looking at that. We also launched a $112 million bail grant to police services to help them monitor some of these offenders that are suspected offenders that are out while they're out in community, to make sure that we're able to keep community as safe as possible. But the fact is, the status quo that we've seen, our provincial carjacking task force that laid 124 arrests earlier last year, half of them were out on bail when we arrested these people. The status quo isn't working. We need criminal code changes. This is a problem the federal government could solve quickly if they wanted to. But rest assured, we're taking the action on our side in Ontario, in the absence of federal leadership on this issue, to make sure that we keep offenders and keep communities safe and hold offenders accountable.
Quick follow-up. As you mentioned in your opening remarks about the invasions, midnight armed robberies, and you got a very important and very crucial this portfolio. How can you make sure that if criminals have their rights, and when the armed robberies happen, why don't the homeowners, the residents who are being robbed midnight, they get their rights to defend themselves? What you can do while you being in this portfolio? Thank you.
Yeah, the power on the provincial side is to make sure that we have the law enforcement capabilities, the best law enforcement capabilities that we possibly can. So what our priority is making sure that we have enough police in our neighborhoods. They have enough resources in terms of equipment to do their jobs, but they also have the resources in terms of intelligence to do their jobs. And they have a justice system that is reactive and responsive and able to make sure that when police lay charges and lay arrests, that those offenders are held to justice in a quick, efficient manner. We can't have scenarios that we've seen where you have the same offenders out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, out committing the same crime time and time again. So we are committed to doing our part. We've done our part, but we're continuously looking at opportunities to improve how we engage with this system from a provincial perspective. So we want to make sure that neighborhoods are safe, and we can get there. Canada, despite what we see in the news, Canada is a safe country. It used to be safer, and we can get there again. And we see some good trends. Again, some of the auto theft numbers that I've talked about, we're seeing some increased trends on the home invasions, et cetera. Our party and Doug Ford and our government are committed to doing everything we can to bring safety back for Ontario residents. We need stronger penalties for sure. And I want the federal government to come with a plan. The criminal code is under federal jurisdiction. They need to come with a plan that actually works for Ontario and works to keep us safe. What I can say, before the Liberal government was elected federally, the criminal code was a lot more in favor of public safety and keeping our neighborhoods and communities safe. Since they have made amendments and changes and passed bills to change it, we have seen that decrease in our communities. I will do everything I can. Premier Ford will do everything he can. Our government will do everything we can in partnership with our police services to keep communities safe. We need change on the criminal code. We need meaningful bail reform from this government. Why are we hearing the same thing from our colleagues in British Columbia? Why is the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, calling for the same thing? Why is the Premier of Manitoba calling for the same thing? Why are we hearing from premiers On the East Coast, maritime premiers calling for meaningful criminal code reform on bail and also on sentencing. We need action out of them. I think all of you here today can help, and your audiences can help by continuing to advocate and continuing to let our government know what more we can do, whether it's the justice system, police, law enforcement, etc. We are a government that listens to the public. The Premier Ford is the most accessible premier we've had in history. We want to hear from the public. We want to hear from you and give us good ideas, and we'll implement them to the best of our ability. We've done a lot. We know there's more that needs to be done. And I look forward to continuing to report back to the folks on this call as our government takes on that work and continues to get it done for your audiences and for all the people in Ontario. Regarding the job itself, we've seen that there have been a rise in auto thefts and violent incidents and violent crime across a number of years. And while we have a strong track record that I'll get into a minute, I think it's important that we had focused attention from somebody elected to really tackle these problems. I view this in kind of three parts. One is making sure that the government sustains what we're doing well, and making sure that we continue to fund the programs that we know are working, the results that we've known have borne fruit. Number two, we've got to make sure that that I focus on making sure the government looks for opportunities on what we can do better, and continuing to engage with the sector, with police forces, with residents, with all kinds of stakeholders to make sure we're learning the lessons that we have to make sure that we can be the best justice-focused Ontario government that we can be. And three is the advocacy that we need to see in Ontario, where we know that our federal government is missing the mark on criminal justice reforms. And I'll speak about all three of those in their time. Number one, really, there's a lot of actions that the government's taken to date that have been making a positive impact. Before Doug Ford was elected, we used to recruit about 1,444 police constables in Ontario every year. Under his leadership and under the leadership of the Solicitor General, Michael Kersner, we've seen that number increase to 2,000. So we're able to recruit more police, get boots on the ground into communities, but we know that our communities are rapidly growing, particularly in the GTHA, but in other major municipalities as well. So we're going to continue, you're going to see us continue to make sure that we are building capacity at the Ontario Police College. We're getting boots on the ground and police in your neighborhoods to make sure that your residents are safe. We've also been very focused on increasing Ontario's investigation capacity through programs like the CISO, the Criminal Intelligence Service Ontario, through programs like the Preventing Auto Theft Grant, through some of the joint task force that you've seen, our carjacking task force, where we are enabling information sharing and facilitating that sharing of information and intelligence amongst our police services here at home, but then also with partners like the CBSA, like partners with that we see in America and others. We've been investing in that heavily. We've also been investing in giving tools and resources to those police, helicopters, automatic license plate readers, amongst others, to make sure that police have the tools, not just that we have the boots on the ground, but that those police have the tools and the equipment that they need to do their job effectively. What we're going to continue to look at is how is that working, and the opportunity for Ontario to engage more to make sure that we are the investments that we're making in law enforcement are being effective. We've made an investment. You'll see the results of this coming soon, where we put the money aside to appoint 25 new provincial judges to make sure that we are processing cases in a timely manner, that we're able to have our justice system meet the demands of our growing community, and particularly looking at high demand areas. Along with that 25 judicial appointments that we're making, we're also going to be appointing or hiring 190 more additional court staff. So these are people like Crown attorneys, these are note takers, these are all the admin staff that are vital to having a functioning and thriving justice system. We often think of tough on crime as just being boots on the ground, law enforcement, getting police in our communities, and we're doing that. But we also need to be tough on crime when it comes to holding offenders accountable and making sure that justice is served in a reasonable, timely manner. So we're focusing on that, and you're going to continue to see improvements from the Ontario government as we roll that plan forward. The third item about advocacy for the federal government, I mean, it's no stranger to a lot of your listeners that our current bail legislation is not hitting the mark. In 2019, the federal government passed a bill, Bill C-75, which really started this catch and release process that we've started to see in our bail system, and putting the comfort, frankly, of the suspected criminal ahead of the community and the neighborhood that we're supposed to be protecting, that we have to protect those residents from these offenders. They made some positive moves at the start of this year with Bill C-48, where they expanded some of the reverse onuses. We're grateful for the collaboration with our federal partners, but we need to see more action taken. The mess that we've seen in our bail system, which really started with that Bill C-75, that revolving door justice, stems from a very ideology about putting the needs of criminals and suspected criminals ahead of the residents in our neighborhood who need to feel safe. So we need strong action on that. We also need action, stiffer controls at our borders. We know about 85% of guns that are on our streets in the GTA come over the American border. We need stronger border control there. And we also need stronger controls at the Port of Montreal and at the CN intermodals in Brampton and Vaughan. So these are files that we continue to work with them on. But rest assured, while we need action from other levels of government, we are taking strong action ourselves. And as I mentioned in the first 2 points, there are things we've done very well already, and there are things that we need to continue to do. So you'll continue to hear from me. As I said, I want to make sure that I'm accessible to not only to yourselves on the call, but also accessible to your audiences. This is a high priority for Premier Ford to make sure we're treating every media outlet with the respect that they deserve.